There's all sorts of trash that gets pumped out in the name of horror film, from the countless pieces of franchise bait to series with no end in sight. The phrase less is more doesn't apply when we are talking scary movies. Like an all-you-can-eat restaurant where you load up your chicken wings with every type of ice cream sauce because like hell are you getting back up for a second plate, more is definitely more. And that means that while cinema is packed with magic and monstrosities alike, there is a fair share of films that get written without ever seeing the cold light of day. Sequels are endlessly set up by overenthusiastic filmmakers, drawing on the most obscure threads of horror universes in an attempt to squeeze out another chunk of box office profit. But whether they actually land or not is, as ever, up to the cruel hands of fate. In that case then, I am the buffet menace, Ash from What Culture, and these are 8 crazy horror movie sequels that almost happened. 8. Beetlejuice 2. Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Just when you thought that Beetlejuice couldn't get any better, and then you learn that they almost decked him out in a dad shirt and sunglasses and sent him on holiday to slap his special brand of nonsense on unsuspecting tourists. Beetlejuice 2 was supposed to be set in the tropical land of coconuts that is Hawaii, revolving around the Dietz family wanting to develop a resort that turns out to be built on top of an ancient burial ground, as all of the best spooky things are. After plenty of shenanigans, Beetlejuice would be all riled up and eventually end the movie competing in a surf competition, which perhaps is the one thing cinema has been missing all of these years, so why the hell haven't we had it? Instead of cracking on with the sleaze on a surfboard, Michael Keaton and Tim Burton went on their merry way to making Batman Returns, leaving the property to bounce around unattended until Kevin Smith pied it off one last time and left it for dead. Thanks for nothing, everyone. 7. 8. 7 is one of the best horror-leaning crime films ever created, with director David Fincher crafting a world where the mysterious John Doe is dishing out murders based on the 7 deadly sins. And what arguably makes it just so great is that it is really one of a kind. There's nothing out there that quite hits the same beats as well or as inventively as Fincher's masterpiece does. It hurts then, dear watcher, to hear that they very nearly undid all that magic by making a sequel by the regrettable title of 8. Technically, a 8, and I mean, the gimmick is there, but the love definitely isn't. And it only gets weirder from there. Since everything was pretty final on Mills and Somerset's professional relationship at the end of the first film, this one would branch out into new territory by setting Somerset up with a whole new hook. Namely, he would be a psychic. Having never displayed any aptitude for these cognitive abilities at any point previously, it would be a lovely surprise that he busts out to catch a serial killer just to spice things up a bit. Presumably joined by Gwyneth Paltrow floating around looking for clues like Casper the Friendly Headless Frickin' Ghost. Of the script, Fincher said he would rather have cigarettes put out in his eyes than make the movie, so it was turned into 2016's Solace instead. 6. Halloween 3. Season of the Evil Toymaker. There have been an obscene amount of Halloween movies that have both graced the screen and been written into existence to never see the light of day. But one of the most interesting that almost got served up hot and fresh to a screen near you was Season of the Evil Toymaker. Instead of the Halloween 3 that we got, which was Season of the Witch, where a madman attempts to use an ancient ritual to kill millions of children with silver shamrock masks, Season of the Evil Toymaker would have seen Halloween get far grittier and more intense, taking a bloodier turn than the campy twists the franchise has later become appreciated for. In this iteration, we'd be faced up with an actual warlock who makes children's toys intent on international child sacrifice. So you can see where they got their angle from when they adapted this work into Season of the Witch. The main differences lay in the way that it was initially written, which would have given us a far more adult and less Americanized Halloween, moved away from the slasher phenomenon and presumably far more closely tied to the British sensibilities of pieces like Don't Look Now and The Omen. It could have been really interesting, to say the least. 5. Cube 3D. If you're a fan of the Saw series, then it is movies like Cube that you have to thank for it. Establishing the whole strangers trapped in a torturous nightmare that die a lot trope and packed to the brim with grisly deaths, Cube is about a group that wakes up inside, well, a cube, and have to figure out a safe path through the interconnecting rooms that doesn't involve getting shredded into chunks by cheese wire. Whilst a sequel in Cube 2 Hypercube and a prequel in Cube 0 were made, there was a third follow-up set to come to fruition that was built entirely around the 3D gimmick of the time. Of course, it was titled Cube 3D. It wasn't ascertained whether this would be a sequel or a reboot to the franchise that started in 1997. But in either case, it would be tailored for the 3D audience in the same way Saw 3D found a home in cinemas by delivering gore that quite literally jumps out the screen. Whilst watching someone get diced and feeling the splashback of face-melting acid would certainly be a film experience, it wasn't to be in the end. Shame. Flying human meat cubes you can really feel are hard to find on screen nowadays. 4. Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. Freddy vs. Jason is the kind of schlocky horror that genre enthusiasts live and die for. Combining all the best bits of big bad horror villains Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees to create one campy showdown is the best idea the filmmaker has come up with in years. But it is not where this crazy crossover train should have terminated. I mean, why stop at 2 when you can have the lot? The next installment in the franchise was supposed to be one that steadily folded in other classic horror characters, with none other than Ash Williams from the Evil Dead series busting his way onto the scene. The chainsaw-handed badass would have been the one to end Freddy Krueger once and for all after finding Krueger tormenting Jason in the form of a disembodied entity. Sadly, the film got caught in a tug-of-war between the 3 owners of the horror properties, and was shelved when New Line was scared off about Freddy being seen as weak with his second loss in a row. 3. Your Next 2. Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett's surprisingly good slasher movie made waves upon release in 2013, with audiences and critics alike praising Your Next smart subversion of horror tropes to create something genuinely unpredictable. Instead of a damsel in distress making bad decisions as a bunch of mass killers come to kill all those in attendance of a family dinner, we get Erin, a strong, capable, and quick-thinking protagonist that manages to keep herself alive admirably with her handy background in survival. Whilst it's understandable that Lionsgate would want to build a sequel off the back of that, the filmmakers decided against doing another movie as it wasn't their style. In Your Next 2, Erin would have been fingered as responsible for all the deaths that had happened in the house, opening up with her in a prison van being transported with a bunch of other inmates. Lamb Mask and the others find and attack the van, meaning they have to escape and hide in a nearby meth lab that has been booby-trapped to the high heavens. Simon Barrett excitedly described it in an interview with IndieWire, saying, "There'd be all of these insane nail cannons and stuff that the meth lab guys would set off. Yet here we are, with no masked murderers, no nail guns, and certainly no meth lab. What are you playing at?" 2. Nocturnal Fears. Now, E.T. might not have been the first movie you think of when you're asked about horror movies. It's a delightful coming-of-age drama about a family coming to the aid of a little stranded alien that needs help. And as much as it might have been a traumatic experience to see the bizarre, wrinkly little fella the first time around, it's not actually a horror movie. So what the hell is it doing on this list? Well, dear watcher, E.T. has a dark secret in the form of its originally planned sequel. Unlike its heartwarming predecessor, Steven Spielberg wanted to make a horror movie sequel that would spin a far more intense and unsettling story. In this iteration, Elliot and his pals would be kidnapped by a horde of carnivorous spacefaring creatures, where they would be tortured until E.T. could come and rescue the lot with his star-spangled finger. Cows would be mutilated, humans would be terrified, and aliens would be attempting to feast on children, so it's kind of understandable how this one managed to avoid the big screen. Instead, it was chopped up and shifted into Poltergeist, which is a fairer trade as any, really. 1. Jaws 3 People Zero. Jaws 3 People Zero is the undoing of a legacy, and probably best that it never saw the light of day. Whilst countless crappy sequels populate the Jaws franchise, none ever went quite so far as this spoofy parody did, sending the big bad great white into Sharknado territory where no shark can emerge from again unscathed. The tagline of the unmaking of a legend paired with a sunglasses-wearing, cigar-smoking shark just seals the deal, really. The script by David Brown and Richard Zanuck was originally intended to be the third in the franchise, and would veer away from the usual horror style of the Jaws movies to bring us a meta-commentary about a group of filmmakers attempting to make a Jaws sequel. In New Nightmare style, it would recreate famous scenes and play them out in a self-aware way, such as the bonfire scene coming around again, populated with Hollywood executives rather than teenage partygoers. Steven Spielberg would have featured, the original novelist would have been eaten in his own swimming pool, and the shark itself would have actually been an alien. Honestly, the more you hear, the more you might come round to it, actually. And that's our list. What horror movie sequel do you wish you got to see on the big screen? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Make sure to subscribe to the What Culture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.